Everyone's like, oh, look, here comes Pensy Joe bringing the Pennsylvania stuff because really test LED in the headlight, but we'll take this shit quite well by all. Regular combination, she's all that Sheet at 10. Proceed to 15. Hey everybody, this is Pensy Joe back again for another Train Talks video. And yes, this truly is the standard of the world. Today I got a really cool model train right here. Although, I'd say it's more like the train that we see on this famous MTH logo right here than model trains that we normally think about or do on this channel. So without further ado, let's open this up. Alrighty, I'm ready to open this up now. So, why is standard gauge truly the standard of the world? Well, it all starts, with Lionel back in the 1900s. A lot of people should know the story by now. If you're watching this video, most likely you are familiar with standard gauge trains. And if you're a viewer on my channel and never heard of standard gauge, well, welcome. I'm going to talk about why I truly think standard gauge is one of those really fun and awesome gauges. First of all, look how this is already massive. These are huge, and they're absolutely beautiful. I cannot wait to eventually do this for Christmas. It was one of the reasons why I got it, because I wanted to do something that's under the Christmas tree. And I figured, you know what? If I'm going to do something for under the Christmas tree, I'm not going to do HO. I'm going to go full on what I wanted to do for a long time. Originally, I wanted to do O scale, but, MTH said they're not really making new products. Well, they are making new products, but at the time, I thought I was really bummed out. So you're like, well, why do you buy this and not buy a Lionel Classic one? Well, I wanted someone that was affordable and a 400E. I didn't want to spend a ridiculous amount of money. This locomotive pretty much costs as much as brass hybrid Broadway Limited HO Q2s, the Pennsylvania Q2s, like 2 or 3 years ago. Those were around $800. And yeah, look at this tender. This is a 400E. Usually the 400E, if not only the 400E, had this particular tender. This is used. It's not brand new. This is very beautiful. That's one of the reasons why I really wanted to get into this gauge, is really the beauty. And yes, they are toy trains. I know we do model trains on here on this channel, and I've worked on model trains, putting TCS in them and all that stuff. But when it comes to standard gauge, there's this different kind of feeling when it comes to these trains. First of all, they're big and they're heavy. This is probably close to 3 or 4 or 5 pounds. I'm not 100% sure. I have to put these on a scale one day. This brass copper is so beautiful. I mean, it is so beautiful. I love the brass all over this model. It looks like copper, but it's not a copper. It's like a bronze sort of thing going on here. I'm not 100% sure. Somebody might correct me or help me out with that. Everything's metal. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful model. And it's got these nice hook coupler things. So I only got the locomotive. This is my first thing. And I figured, what would be the first great locomotive? And I was looking at, last week with my fiance, and I was like, I really want something really cool. And and for a while now, I've been looking at standard gauge stuff, because I was getting that standard gauge. Well, for young people today and to the old people, it's like that drug. It's like a drug, even though I never had drugs in my life. Just letting everybody know I never had drugs. Um, but standard gauge trains is like a drug. HO trains, yeah, you like it and you get hooked on it. Same thing with O gauge and O scale trains. They're pretty cool. But man, there's just something about standard gauge that just hooks you, and it always will. I've heard a lot of people say, and they were thinking, they were saying what I was thinking at the time when I was like, get into this standard gauge stuff, and I really wanted to get into it. If you know, I love toy trains made by TM Videos / TM Books. You would see these trains all the time. This thing's like 20 pounds. I might have to do this with two hands, but this is the 400D is pretty much one of those models that you look at. I mean, I'll call it a model. It's a model that represents the period that it came from. It's a model of the toy train that came out over 100 years, about 100 years ago. So some people are wondering, well, if you're going to get a 400E, why don't you get a Lionel original? On eBay, the original 400Es I've seen are in the multi-thousands, like more than this. This was $800, and then it was used. It's a Proto Sound 2, which is fine. I wanted a Proto Sound 2 because I planned on doing something at some point to do for under the tree, just to run in circles or like an oval or something. And I did plan to get some track. And I did some more research, and I heard these are pretty good. Now, I've seen these things run around for a long time, and MTH used to make these a lot, especially during the 80s when they made reproductions of these. And well, I haven't seen any reproduction 80s ones as much, but I've seen the Proto Sound ones. I mean, there's a whole bunch of these on eBay. I mean, if you think HO engines are expensive, and you want something that you feel like you're getting your money's worth out of, like some of these models that I have are like expensive, I mean, I have a Pennsylvania Streamline K4 that when brand new it costs around $400-$500 depending. It's a couple of years old now, but you can get like a reproduction 9E electric, just probably a little bit shorter than this 400E, but you would get a cool big model or toy train for around $300-$400, and it's a lot bigger than an HO model. And you would have Proto Sound 1 if you got it from MTH. And I know people like the classics are great, amazing. I'd like to get one original standard gauge train that's in really, really good condition, but I don't want to spend too much money, so that's going to be a challenge. But people are like, well, why is it so great if they're rather expensive? Well, it's about what you get and how impressive they are. These trains they're just impressive. They're just beautiful and impressive, and it's like the Blue Comet. That's pretty much on the company logo for MTH trains. It's iconic, and you can find the Blue Comet online. There's a couple Blue Comets right now, but trust me, if you want to get a Blue Comet, people know what the Blue Comet is. Even if it's a reproduction, they know what the Blue Comet is. I could have gotten a Blue Comet set a couple years ago when MTH was doing, I guess, a final run, and the locomotive was like around $1,000, and the coaches all together, the 4-car or 3-car set, it's like $1,000, so it would have been cheaper than Proto Sound 3, Blue Comet with, the locomotive, $200 more, but it's brand new, so I can understand. This is older, but $800 is not bad for a 400E, especially if it's reproduction. He's even a Proto Sound 1. I mean, this is. I got this for a good, fair deal, I think. There's only one like paint problem with it, and I could always fix it. And I'm obviously never going to resell it, so nobody would know. Because I plan on maybe pass this down to my kids one day, so they could run it under their Christmas tree. And that's just that's what's great about these tin plate, standard gauge trains, is that it's like a generational thing that you can pass on. And there's just that Americana, like 1920s, 30s Americana feel to them, and it's beautiful. It's so beautiful, and there's custom models out there. I'll probably show some pictures of some unique stuff that people have made, and some other models that I've seen on eBay that I was like, holy cow. There's something called a McCoy. I think it's called McCoy. And I was looking for just looking around at standard gauge stuff because I was kind of drooling at the mouth, just looking around like, well, what else is out there? And there was like a Pennsylvania big electric that's like probably bigger than this, and it probably weighs like 20-30 pounds because it has two motors in it. So it's like the Lionel 408E, whereas two motors inside it, so twin build-a-loco motors, where it has like two of these main motor areas, which we'll see when we get this locomotive out, because I got my other hand holding the camera. So there's stuff that you'll see in standard gauge you would not believe could be done. I mean, especially modern days. There's a club out there called SGMA, I believe. They're Standard Gauge Model Association, and there's guys who make custom standard gauge models. There was even a guy back, I believe, in the 70s or 80s that made like these Challenger tin plate standard gauge models, and they are gorgeous. They're ginormous, but man, were they beautiful. And you can still see them running around. If you look up on YouTube, standard gauge trains, or standard gauge Challenger, or standard gauge tin plate, whatever, you'll see, and you'll be like, holy cow, these are cool. And they're in the style and the beauty of like the original standard gauge stuff, like, and even in the reproductions based off the Lionel, Ives, and I don't know if there's Marks. There's Ives, Lionel, and American Flyer. And you could find the locomotives and the passenger sets for a fair value. Sure, they're gonna be like, if you want like a 3 or 4 car set, sometimes 4 or 5 car sets, around between $500 to $1,000, and you might be like, well, that's a lot of money. Well, you only really need, if you just want something beautiful under the Christmas tree and you don't want to collect them, you can get that with the reproduction models. And you don't have to, and even the originals, you can get a nice original one that all you need is a transformer and a loop of track, and you need like a terminal that connects to the track, and just make sure it's lubed, the original one, and it'll probably keep putting around like it did over 100 years ago in some kid's house. It's one of these things that it's generational, and I've seen younger people getting into them. I've seen people make a Lego version of the Blue Comet, which is really cool. I mean, the legacy of standard gauge trains still lives on today. There are people who are older than me. I'm in my 20s, starting to get closer to the late 20s, but there are young people who are still finding interest in these models. I mean, they're still on eBay. There's still 400Es that people are buying. Even the original ones are people buying. I mean, the originals are always going to be, even the original famous ones like the State sets, the Comet sets, even the Mayflower sets. I mean, they're from from all these other standard gauge companies. They people still buy them, people still trade them, and people still run them. They're definitely a niche, but I really think they still have a place in this world, and they're like, it's like when you watch Polar Express, they say it's a magic train. Well, these toy trains are pretty much magic in themselves. And I'm pretty sure when a kid got this, in the 1920s, late 1910s, 1920s, 1930s, they're like, man, this is the greatest thing ever. I mean, sure, you do need space. I think the smallest curve is, no, I don't think they call it O42, but it's like a 42-inch radius curve. So the minimum curve radius is standard 42-inch curves. So standard 42 is the minimum that this can go on, and which is pretty much what most, which is I think the smallest that you can run standard gauge trains on. So Yeah, I mean, it's these train. A lot of these trains can run on the small stuff, but if you get the custom bigger ones, well, that might be a little bit complicated. You would have to ask the custom person if where it can, or if you buy it secondhand, because most of the custom stuff that you want that standard gauge is most likely gonna be owned by somebody right now. It's in somebody's collection. Um, which it's cool. It's still cool. It's just that if you want those custom ones, it's gonna be really hard and probably really expensive. And unfortunately, MTH is not as big as it used to be. I don't know what happened to their standard plate stuff. I think they just lost the license. I don't know what happened. I've tried to look at forums and stuff and read about what happened to them, but there's still a lot of them on eBay. I mean, there's always new stuff popping up. Like there's always new stuff popping up. There's new. I'll tell you this: if you're looking for like a modern Amtrak Viewliners, this stuff pops up like maybe 5, 10 times more than looking for Walther's Viewliners and HO, which is pretty healthy actually. It is pretty healthy. It's not as much as maybe Pennsylvania because like there's like new HO 9 like 90 something Pennsylvania stuff every day, like over 90 new products on eBay on every day. And you can find these anywhere. You can find these at train shows. And part of the hitch of what got me into wanted to get into tin plate standard gauge. I was at the Deerfield show in Florida a couple of years ago, and I saw this state set passenger coach that was, I believe, brown, and it was huge. I was like, holy cow, that thing is so cool. I was like, man, I almost wanted it because it's just once it hooks you and you see it in person, it's almost like you get hooked on a drug, as I stated earlier in the video. So yeah, let me get this out of the box, and in the meantime, I'll show you some like photos and stuff. And at the end of the video, I'll show you like the videos to where I found these unique models. There's even a T1 like standard gauge, tin plate model as well. It's pretty cool the amount of stuff you'll see. But yeah, let me get this out and unbagged, and we'll talk more about standard gauge and why it really is the standard of the world. Alrighty, first up, I'm going to show you some listings. Really just one. This is an original 402E. And here's the MTH 392E with the MTH color, which I think it pops. I like the dark purple with the white. And here's a nice MTH 408E with the two-tone brown. This is usually seen with the estate sets. And here's a MTH 381. Lionel also makes the 381 as well, but it's just so beautiful, these engines. And we're going into another company, Ives. This was produced by MTH. Another one of those S-Motor New York Central looking locomotives. And here's an Ives steam engine. This is a 442 Pacific. Looks similar to one of those Pennsylvania K units, but or not Ks, but Es, but you get the picture. Here is a American Flyer or Flyer line locomotive. Looks similar to the Ives locomotive, actually. And here's a very beautiful blue looks like an S motor with very blue passenger cars. And here's a later on company called McCoy. You can see that big white electric down there with the steam engine at the top left. And here's JE Manufacturing Company's custom stuff. This is a Challenger in standard gauge, which is insane. All right, so now we're back. I got the main engine out of the box, and yeah, I mean, just look how beautiful this thing is. I might have to polish some of the brass. There's some dents. I might have to get some microfibers and wipe her down a bit. Same thing with the smoke residue that's around the base right here, and just clean her up pretty much. There is a small. It's used, so relax. There is a little bit of a scuff right here, which is not a huge big deal for me. Same thing right here. I could always get some of that Testros like black, because this is basically black lacquer. And it's basically black enamel. So it's the same enamel that similar to the Testros. So I can just take a little very fine brush and just fill that in, just fix it. Some people are like, well, it's like, well, it's mine, so I plan on fixing it. And yeah, this is so beautiful. The brass is really copper looking because brass originally came from copper, and it is just, this is the MTH. So it's, I didn't want to get the one that says New York Central. MTH also made like a gray one with the nickel trim, and I like that one. But I really like this black, and my fiance said that's the one that I really liked, and I agree with her. I agreed. It's very beautiful, and I love the red wheels, and yeah, it really is such a beautiful engine. I mean, I could maybe hook up the tender too. There we go. Hooked up the tender, and there we are. Look at that. And this thing's huge. Like, it's ginormous. It is such a big model locomotive, and I'm really glad I got this. This is something I didn't really think I had a huge, feel for, but until I saw that coach a while back and started looking around at what standard gauge is really about and all that stuff, and really got back to how I was when I was a kid, when I used to watch those, TM train videos, and you realize just how beautiful and the people did with the layouts and whatnot. Now I don't think I can do stuff like that because I don't have a property. I'm not a millionaire. I can't have a property that big that can have such an extravagant standard gauge layout. But I could always have something fun to run around under the Christmas tree, and if the standard gauge 42 curve is not as big as I hopefully think it is, and it's small enough that I can, that it can fit under that it can fit under the peninsulas of my layout, I might do something a bit insane and put a standard gauge layout under the main layout, and have it elevated maybe like a foot or two off the ground, and then still have, and then it'll be like 2 feet above like the standard gauge layout. But that's something I was thinking about, so don't worry about it. But yeah, why? It's just really to look at it. Just look. It is beautiful. It is such a beautiful bottle. There's some dust, but that's okay. I only took it out of the box once to show my fiance when it arrived. It is just one of those beautiful models. Now, obviously, you can't see too much detail. There's some, molded in, firebox detail of the rivets and whatnot. It is just so beautiful. It just needs a nice microfiber wipe down and get some dust out of there. Use like a toothbrush to get some of the dust out, or maybe not even use a toothbrush. Maybe even something softer. It's just to keep her beautiful. And why would I recommend this as for somebody who might be getting into trains and, well, look at it. It's big. Yes, it is a little bit, it is pretty, well, compared to like, if you wanted to get into HO stuff, like you have to spend money. You have to spend the money no matter what. So you can get like, even you can get a pre-war set that's in very good and very well condition for around $500-$600. You won't get the track, but you can buy good quality track that's made today. It's called USA Standard Gauge track. It's like a USA something, but they make good track. I'll look them up and I'll put them in the description as well, where they have their track and you can look them up. And you can get some really nice, really good quality standard gauge track that you could use for your standard gauge trains. And you can have basically brand new track. You don't even have to buy original track. You get brand new track that you can run your standard gauge trains on. It's really the beauty, and it really fits for all ages. It's the beauty and the elegance of these models. Um, it just and there's a yeah. I'm just expecting it, but for what you get, it's 400E might be a little bit too expensive to some people. I mean, $800 for something, just for an engine that doesn't come with track, it is quite a bit. But if you want a 400E, the reproductions are pretty good. I haven't heard a lot of people saying bad things about them. It's just that people they're like, I like the original stuff. It's so cool seeing the original. I'm like, I agree. It is cool seeing the original. Um, I'd like to see an original in person at one time, but we'll see. Will I get an original 400E? No, I'm not spending that much money for original 400E. I'll stick with my MTH reproductions. Thank you. Would I get a Blue Comet at some point? Maybe. And that's one of the things. If you know the Blue Comet, or if you don't know the Blue Comet, look up the Blue Comet and look how beautiful it is. It's really that type of grab and that attention and that it demands. And the passenger cars have detail inside of them. They're nicely detailed. These things are actually nicely detailed. They're not like Rapido or like scale trains kind of detail. These are caricatures. It's like a cartoon. They're like cartoons, but like they're toys. But at the same time, they're not. They can be serious too, and that's what makes them really unique and cool and beautiful. Is just their allure, and I mean, this thing's got marker lights. I think it has a firebox light under there. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure if that's like a Proto Sound 3 thing. I'll have to. This thing's really heavy. Holding it in one hand's kind of scary. Uh, would I recommend this for kids? Well, yeah, I would recommend this for kids. It'd be fun. It's fun for the kids. However, I wouldn't give this to small kids. Uh, it weighs probably 10 to 20 pounds. I don't know. I haven't put it on a scale, but it's definitely a heavy engine. It's got a motor in here. Like doing one hand, I could always feel like, oh, this is pretty heavy. So it's that's what's great about it. It's a heavy model. It's not going to fly off the tracks or anything like that. It's big. There's not a lot of small parts that could be that a kid can like try and eat or something stupid like that. I don't know why you let kids eat stuff that's not supposed to be eaten, but it's definitely good for. It's definitely a family friendly like gauge. I mean, there's just so much about them that just screams wow, and it grabs attention. Like I plan on getting some freight cars. I plan on getting freight cars first, and I would like to get the I want to get a Z4000 transformer. So the Z4000 transformer is probably going to be the next most expensive thing you're going to have to buy after you get a standard gauge locomotive. It might be a little bit more. It's probably around. I've seen brand new ones on Training World for like $800, $850. I'm like, whoa. So I might be looking into a maybe a more better market priced one. I would like to get a Z4000 transformer just to mainly for like you can do multiple tracks, and maybe one day if I want to, maybe if we renovate the house to have like an extended garage or something, I can make a dedicated standard gauge layout. Where the original garage used to be, but that's a maybe. But at the same time, there's just so many things I can do, and I can always just keep it with the Christmas stuff. And I plan to put these on like a shelf under the layout that's like wooden and really nice, looking like a mahogany or whatever. It looks like mahogany. I don't know, but it's just when you have something like this and you get the track's rather cheap. You can still find track, and even on the link I'll put in the USA standard gauge track stuff, they're not that expensive. They're probably rather similar in price than just as any other track you might buy in any other scale or gauge. So you don't have to really worry about track price. Freight cars are not too bad actually. I mean, I've seen like 500 series, which I believe are the really big like freight cars you can get for these tin plate trains. They can be as low as like $40 in very good condition, like around 40s or 50s or 60s, up until like a couple $100, depending on what it is, I guess, or wherever's selling it. So the freight cars are the second cheapest thing. Passenger cars, they can be a couple $100 each, and sometimes you get nice deals on sets that are like, around 400 to 700, 800, maybe even $1,000. Sometimes you can get a whole train set for $1,000. There's one that I was really eyeing on. It was a green estate set with the 381E, but the guy wouldn't ship. It's local pickup only. He lived in Pennsylvania. I'm like, damn it. I'd like to get some passenger cars at some point. I'd like to get those long ones that you get. There's like two tabs that you push in, and the roof tilts open. It's on a hinge, and you can look inside, and you can put some maybe tinplate figures or whatever, or G-scale figures or whatever figures you can put in there if you want to. And they're lit up, though, too, those passenger cars. So it would be nice. Would I like to get a Blue Comet? Maybe. I'm not sure if I'm going to really collect too much. This is new for me, so I got to let it settle in. I have to get the track. I have to get the transformer. Couple of questions for those who are in standard gauge, if you do watch this video, or if you are watching this video. I have a question. Can you just put the Z4000 transformer, use those plug-in tabs, and then, I'm obviously going to use the Robet track, and I know some people said bad things about it. I'll figure that out once I set up a loop of track and put the, the little track terminal piece in, plug it in, and then I'll use those banana plug wires. And I want to know if you can do directly from the transformer, plug it into the just track, no DCS, just transformer to the track. And can you do it with Protosound 1, 2, and 3 MTH models? I heard some people say they recommend putting a DCS in between, and unfortunately, people are trying to sell I don't know if I'm going to get any Protosound 3 stuff in the future. That's just a thing. I'd like to be prepared, but unfortunately, MTH is no longer doing the regular TIU where you can get it remote. So now they're going to have a new TIU coming out. So if you want to do the fancy sounds and whatnot and run like non-conventional, I like to try conventional first just to get that old feel. I heard there's a thing where it goes into conventional mode already, but I just want to be sure. Otherwise, I will have to get a TIU, and the newest TIU that's a rather fair price is a TIU with the WIU, the Wi-Fi unit. I used to have a Wi-Fi module, and it's merged together in one now. And I have to get the MTH app to run the run trains, and it can run Protosound 2 and Protosound 3, but I can't run Protosound 1. And I like to. This is a problem. I like to run everything. I want to run everything on one thing, so. I'm guessing the Protosound 1 you can run conventionally? I'm not 100% sure. I know the Protosound 1 has those batteries, and I'll have to check if it has that particular battery too. It's called the white battery that everyone says, the white battery of death. I'll have to look up that. But yeah, that's my question to those out there. So you will have to spend a bit of money to just get stuff. But once you get that stuff and you got the locomotive, sure, you probably put $2,000 down. Some people are not going to like that. It's not for everybody. I understand. You don't have to necessarily run it. You could just put this on a shelf and put glass over it. Make sure it's polished first and make it sure it looks pretty. And then you'd be like, look at this. And everybody would be like, wow, look at that. Wow, look at that. It just grabs your attention. I'm just constantly looking at it because it's so pretty. And I can't wait to run it. I heard this one I got was tested and it does run. So we'll see. Maybe once I get that stuff set up, I'll do a little video of it just going around in a circle on its own. And I'll get more freight cars. I'd like to get a caboose. I'd like to get... I'm not sure. There's so many different classes of coaches and stuff. And keep in mind when you're doing standard gauge, especially MTH reproductions, this is based off of Lionel. Obviously, the 400E is based off Lionel. For those who do not know, they have a particular coupler system right here. This has a specific coupler type. I know that Ives has a different coupler type, and I'm not blanking out. I'm American Flyer has a different coupler type too, and this is sprung, so that's cool. So you just push the cars together and they couple up. So you'll have to know what product they are. Just look at them, look at the pictures, especially on eBay if you're looking at freight cars. Make sure that they have the same coupler like this, and that's how you know that they're the Lionel. So this is what the Lionel coupler looks like. So that's how you know that it's probably a Lionel. And I'll probably do some before I run this. When I do an inaugural run, I'll probably make sure that the gears have some lubrication. I'll make sure that everything has some lubrication on it. Put some lube on there so that it'll run nice and smooth. I'm not sure if it has smoke. That'll be interesting. If I don't have any smoke, it came with smoke, but I don't know if that smoke is still good. So I shall figure that out. Otherwise, I'll get I think JT or JD Megasteam and put that in there and see what happens. See how much smoke it billows out. And I might get some cinnamon one for Christmas. So yeah. So for me, being an HO mainly modeler, this comes out of left field a bit. Some people are like, oh, you're getting to another gauge now. What are you doing? Well, when it comes to standard gauge and you look at it and you understand the history and the beauty of these models, and you see there's their legacy over time, just these things constantly running. It really is true that they don't build them like they used to, but some of these MTH models are old and they're still in great condition and they're still running. They're still running these models. They still run. They still keep going, and that's what's great about them. They just keep going. And it's simple. That's what I like about these. These are simple models, and that's just great. As someone who's become more like into the mechanical stuff, and for like doing like hardwiring DCC decoders and upgrading stuff and working and replacing motors in certain models that I've had, particularly Paragon 3 stuff by BLI, but that's besides the point. It's nice to have something that looks simple and runs simply. It's a shame that I don't know everything about the MTH like I used to. It's been years since I had anything MTH. I had O gauge in the beginning of entering back into my interest in model trains. It's probably about 5-6 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago that I originally had O gauge trains. They're a Rail King line. I wanted to do a huge Rail King layout that looked very realistic, but the trains are not exactly the scale, so it's like a mix. And it would be cool to do that with like these. I've seen some nice layouts where people put Woodland Scenics bushes around their standard gauge layout, and it's like, what the heck? It's like a mix between like realistic, kind of like a real feel, kind of like landscape, and then you just have standard gauge trains going around. And I guess the focus is just look at the uniqueness and the beauty and the wonder of these trains, and you have like this realistic background. But yeah, I highly recommend people to look into standard gauge. Just give it a look, and maybe buy a 9E or look at these in person. At least try to look at standard gauge in person before jumping in. Watch videos. Go onto forums, and you'll understand the appeal for standard gauge. A lot of people love standard gauge. Some people just don't get into it though, and and that's fine. I mean, this standard gauge can be quite addicting, and I can tell you this from firsthand. I felt the appeal. I've been looking at the stuff from time to time. A couple years ago, I started looking into it, and I really wanted to pull the trigger on that one. On the last time Train World had those new MTH reproduction Blue Comet sets coming. And that was the last time, and I didn't pull the trigger, unfortunately. But no, I did. I got a 400E, and I love this black with the brass trim. It really is beautiful. And I really like that it has MTH lines and MTH logo, and it has the MTH number 400E. I really hope somebody makes standard gauge again. There's so many new things you can do, and yes, you can reproduce the 400Es. You can reproduce the Mayflowers and you can reproduce the Ives trains. Yes, reproduce those, make those again. They're just so cool, and make brand new stuff. MTH actually made two. Not well, the other one's not as unique because Lionel was originally going to make it a long time ago, but they didn't. It's called the Brute. It's basically a very big 381. It's basically a very big 381 electric. It's huge. It's humongous. It articulates. I think the body has multiple segments to articulate. So that one's really cool. It's really hard to find, and it's really expensive because it's rare. It was, I guess, a really limited number, and it was put in like a wooden crate / metal frame because it was so damn heavy. That's what makes it so cool. Same thing with 408E. That was known for the state sets. That one is kind of heavy too, and that's two motors, and that's in like a crate, like a metal, like frame crate. It's a nuts. These things are nuts. They're just amazing. You can't really. Here's the truth about it. It is the standard of the world. And you can't really explain why, but you feel it and you see it and you know it once you understand it by looking at it, by looking at the history, and by looking at them in action. It's just once you see them moving and how much eyes, especially your own eyes, you get the allure. And it really is hard to explain. But yeah. Yeah, I could put up an HO model next to it, but here's the top view, and here's the HO track. So the HO track's like basically, it's like just, I mean it's tiny. The HO, my HO K4 is probably like from tender to front of the locomotive is like right here. Tender to locomotive is right there, and it keeps going. Even O gauge is pretty small. Even O scale is probably like this big. It's like twice the size of HO, twice in height, so about probably like this high. And then it's like I mean, yeah, it really is one of those things. So yeah, guys, that's all I gotta say. It's just. I'm just fawning over this thing. That's really what it is. A lot of people fawn over these things because they're big, they're fun, they're rather simple, and they just they're just a part of a time, and they're just part of that beauty and that artistry, and that even though they look simplistic, and they're not accurate looking steam engines in real life. It doesn't matter. That's the point. It doesn't matter. Standard gauge means it doesn't matter. It's all about the beauty and the running, and just watching them go around. It's that thing. It's that itch. The colors are beautiful. Even though this is like a black locomotive, right? In real life, a lot of steam engines were black. The black still pops with the red wheels. And the brass, I mean, it just pops. Even though the main color is black, it pops. Blue Comet's got like a light blue with the dark blue frame. Sure. And then there's the gray one that's mostly light gray, and then I think it has a dark gray base. And there's a gray one. And the MTH made multiple colors. They made a green one. They made a red, like a red blue. It's not a red blue Comet. It's like Blue Comet but red, and it's got light red and it's got dark red. So it's like Blue Comet but red. And there's an orange Lionel one that's like orange and blue, based off the Lionel like company colors. I mean, there's so many colors. There's so many color combinations, and that's what just makes them interesting. They're colorful. They're just so colorful, and they're big, they're huge, and they just bring a smile on your face. They really do, and that's one of those things. It's just one of those things. You just can't I mean, are they the most economical train you can get? To some, yeah. If you have this, if you can fit a standard gauge 42-inch radius curve in your house, you can run standard gauge. You can run standard gauge in your apartment. It's just under your coffee server in your apartment. It's just you can't make a huge layout, sure, but for Christmas or for just simple running around the house, just for simple like it's like a train set you get as a kid. It's basically what it is. It's a train. It's like Rail King or the Lion Chief stuff, but fancier and bigger. That's basically what these are. They're toy trains, but they're huge and they're more colorful. I mean, yeah, the modern stuff that the I mean, they're more based off of real life roads and whatnot, and that's fine and all. But you got to once you tap in that child side, that standard gauge is the way to go. If you want to tap in your child side, you don't really care about how accurate something is or whatever. Standard gauge is the way to go because because it grabs that attention. It's like watching a cartoon, but imagining the cartoon, but the cartoon's in real life. Again, it's one of those things that's kind of hard to explain. It really is. But yeah, the allure of standard gauge and me, telling you all that I finally got a standard gauge model, and this is my first standard gauge locomotive. It's a 400E, which is, well, I should have got maybe a 90 or a 381 or a 392E. Well, I can tell you this. I'd like to get a 392E black with the brass and the 381E with black and because it'll be a nice lineup. So I'm already thinking about my next two models. I'm also thinking about the electrics too. The electrics are beautiful. Here's the thing. I would like to start a discussion about, if somebody makes standard gauge again, I would not, to be honest, I don't want Lionel to make them. I'd rather Atlas make standard gauge trains because I know they would try to make the best, quality, best running ones. I would hope. I want somebody else to do standard gauge. If MTH doesn't make standard gauge again, which they probably won't, I don't think Lionel's up for a task. I don't think Lionel is the same as what it used to be for a long time. And that's just the unfortunate thing. I've heard a lot of people complain about Lionel's electronics just not working. Something's not working, and they're these expensive $3,000, $2,000, $1,000 models, $1,000 like accurate steam locomotive. That's or like a $2,000 like Vision Line model. Like holy cow, they're impressive, cool, but like $2,000, $3,000, sometimes even $4,000. It's getting insane. And you could say the same thing about the original 400E, $5,000 for an original 500E. Yeah, but you don't have to. That's why I liked MTH, is that they were more affordable, but they were just as, or even more, even in other cases, more reliable than the Lionel stuff. And I've seen many people who are an O gauge, O scale say, from their experience, MTH is better. And when it comes to like the quality of the electronics and whatnot, I mean, some people are like, well, no. Okay, you can say that, but I'm just going off based off of listening to other people going on forums and whatnot. And I know there's still some really good quality Lionel models. I'm not just bashing on Lionel because bashing them for bashing's sake, but there's a lot of weariness I've seen about Lionel's quality, especially now MTH is not as big as it used to be or as big as a competitor. And yeah, I that's why I don't want to do standard gauge, because I think they would sour standard gauge. I think Lionel would sour standard gauge if they don't care as much compared to like what they were doing with other stuff with how they do with their Premier, their not Premier but Legacy stuff. That's their way of saying Premier. Legacy and Vision Line stuff is just break after and it's just That's why I got an MTH model. That's why I got an MTH 400E, not a Lionel 400E. Well, Lionel made a classic one, but they're kind of expensive. And this classic Lionel that I saw was like over $1,000, $1,500 for a Blue Comet 400D. So I was like, eh. But yeah, I mean, it's just if somebody here's how I would end this up. I really think standard gauge should continue, and I really think that the demand is pretty high, higher than some people may think it is, since it's a niche within a niche. um, it is pretty high, and I see younger people are understanding the beauty of tin plate trains and standard gauge. I mean, if you're gonna get tin plate train, get standard gauge. Don't get the O gauge stuff. Get standard gauge. If you're gonna go tin plate, go full way. Go standard gauge. And if somebody were to make standard gauge again, I would like them to do, as I stated before, make the original stuff, but make some new stuff in the mix as well. Like a 4664. I'm serious. There's a 4664 custom 4664s that some guy produced. Basically Challenger, but they look like tin plate trains, like the 400E. They're beautiful. They're amazing. And some people made GG1. Some people make GP9. Some people made F units. I'd love to see a streamlined F unit with with the beautiful caricature schemes and all that stuff. And Baldwin Sharks. Imagine a Baldwin Shark with the beautiful, tin plate colors and whatnot, and the brass trimmings for the headlight cover, and like the brass trimming for the windows and all that stuff, and like for the vents as well, brass vents and a beautiful bright color and whatnot, or dark color. I mean, it would look beautiful. Same thing with the F units. Like it's just something I'd really love to see. It's just there's so much potential that standard gauge could have again. It just imagine the possibilities. That's what I like about standard gauge nowadays is that it basically you can have the original stuff and have this the usual stuff that's been around for a very long time, like the 400E and all the other E's and especially the electric logos. But then there are people who are making custom stuff. And when I mentioned before, there was a Pennsylvania T that's in tin plate, and it has like the very beautiful brass, and it's got a lighter green. It's not DGLE. Okay, it's supposed to be a caricature. All right, remember guys, caricatures. It's like a lighter green, and it's like a forest green. I'll say that it's like a forest green. It had the beautiful lithographs and all that stuff. It's so beautiful. It was such a beautiful. It had black wheels, but I'd like to see a team one with the red wheels, and the very bottom the pilot has the red. It would look amazing. It really would. And somebody made B&O models. Somebody made an EM1 B&O tin plate standard gauge train. Somebody made a B&O Mountain. I forgot what the class is. I'm sorry, B&O guys, but they made a 482 B&O in like a royal blue scheme with like the dark blue, and they had a passenger train with B&O stuff. It's crazy with the custom stuff that people have done with standard gauge. Would I ever do one? I don't know if I can. It would take a lot of years of experience of metalworking and stuff and custom stuff to make something like that. And a lot of those guys usually use the old Build-A-Loco like chassis. That's basically where these two main drivers are right here. It's the Build-A-Loco chassis. So they use those Build-A-Loco motors, and they make them to make these unique models. It's incredible. Some people made like a 800E, where it's basically like a duplex, or not really a duplex, but like an articulated version of the 400E, but it's like twice the length of a 400E. It's incredible. So yeah, MTH. I mean, well, not MTH, but standard gauge and Lionel and Ives and American Flyer and Marks. These companies, they still ring today as they did 100 years ago with these toy trains, but these are models of the original toys, and I have to say they're just incredible. There's what even the original coaches had interior details. It's just they're nice, and I like that simplistic look with the details because if you I mean it's nice that I have Pennsylvania stuff and I have HO, and of course don't worry guys, I'm sticking with HO. I always will love the HO, and I'm still gonna get new HO stuff and work on HO and do Pennsylvania stuff and build a layout that's Pennsylvania. But this is a true secondary hobby. Is the standard gauge stuff. I don't know if I'm gonna really go so far to buy so many models, and try and collect. I'm not gonna do a collect them all. That's not that kind of guy. Otherwise, I would need to like ditch the HO idea. So I'm not gonna ditch the HO. It might come as a thought at one point if it gets frustrating, but I don't think so. HO is still going to be the way for me, and the standard gauge stuff is going to be my secondary stuff down the line. But it's mainly going to be for Christmas stuff for now, and for my kids to enjoy. Obviously, before I let my kids handle something that's heavy as this 400E, I'm just going to let them play with the train first to understand, all that stuff. But I'm not going to let them really, mess with that much. I know people are like, well, you don't want it to break it. I just don't want it to get dirty and scuffed up. That's because I wanted to keep it to look nice. I don't plan to resell it. That's not the reason why I wanted to keep it to look nice and play with it. I want it to still be beautiful when people come over or when I take it. I'm coming when I do Christmas. I'd like to bring it with me when me and my fiance go to see my family, and like to put it under whoever we're doing Christmas at under the tree. And run it around, and everyone talks about it probably. Like, oh, wow, look how beautiful that thing is. So, yeah, standard gauge, guys. Truly is the standard of the world. This is Pensy Joe signing out again. I know this video was really long. There's me rambling about and fawning over this thing, but, I feel like, someone's... I mean, I've seen videos of it and people talk about it, but just not... I just don't feel like there's just not enough praise in such a unique and small sector of the hobby, and it's still rather healthy. A lot of old guys still do it, but I hope young guys don't get shied away from it. I'm still rather young, and look at me, I got a 400E. So anywho, I'll see you guys next time in a future video. I got something else I want to discuss. Not more about standard gauge. Don't worry, we're gonna go back to HO for those who mainly subscribe to my channel for HO stuff. I want to talk about something really that's been on my mind lately, and I've seen people discuss stuff similar to it. But anyways, that's till next time. See you around, guys. Bye now.
To the hill and by the shore, hear the mighty rush of the engine, hear the lonesome hobo squall, riding through the jungle on the Wabash Cannonball. Now here's to Daddy Claxton, may his name forever stand, and may he be remembered in the courts throughout the land. When his earthly race is over, let the curtains round him fall. We'll carry him home to victory on the Wabash Cannonball. Oh, listen to the jingle, the rumble, and the roar, as she glides along the woodland to the hill and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of the engine, hear the lonesome hobo squall, riding through the jungle on the Wabash Cannonball.